Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to Spain once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. Now, as I told you guys in my channel update video a few weeks ago, I brought back a bunch of beers to Hong Kong with me from my trip in Spain, and I'm looking forward to reviewing these ones, and that's what we're going to kick off with this video today. As I've told you on the channel many a time before, when countries that are good at wine try their hand at beer, it always tends to go pretty well, and Spain is no exception to that rule. So I've got about 8 or 10 Spanish beers that I'll work my way through over the next few videos, and I really hope that you guys enjoy this little Spanish mini series of reviews that I'm going to do for you, because there are some very good beers and very good breweries in this mini series. So yeah, the one that we're going to kick off with today is from a brewery that's very well respected in its local region. They seem to be very well established and do a lot of different styles, which for me is always a very good sign. It's a style that I very much enjoy, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't think I've reviewed a beer from this particular Spanish region. So yeah, don't hold me to that 100%, but yeah. This particular beer was also recommended to me by one of the bottle shop owners whose shop I visited in Malaga, if I'm remembering correctly, and it is supposed to be very good. So yeah, needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to head to Spain. We are going to go to a little place called Langreo, which you'll find in the Asturias region, and probably the biggest cities near to this place would be Oviedo and Gijón, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Apologies if I'm not. But yeah, that means that we're going to have a look at my first beer from Cerveza Caleya. This particular beer that we're looking at today is called Love the Bomb. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a West Coast Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, as you know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I'm a huge fan of the old school, big, chewy, caramelly West Coast double IPAs, and I think this one should fit into that mould quite nicely. I was told that this one is quite an old school West Coast IPA, and it is supposed to be really damn nice. And as I say, I'm just excited to cover some Spanish breweries for you here on the channel as well. But yeah, Love the Bomb from Cerveza Caleya in Langreo, Asturias, Spain. Really cool to introduce these guys to you here on the channel. So let's crack on with this one then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Cerveza Caleya. This is the very first time I'm encountering one of their beers, as I mentioned, hopefully not the last though. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see any more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Spanish playlist along with a number of other things. Like I said, that's being added to quite regularly at the moment because I do have a number of Spanish beers to work my way through. Hopefully we can get them up more regularly beyond that as well, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about the history of Cerveza Caleya, and I will apologise in advance for any bad Spanish pronunciations in this video. I'm still learning a little bit about that. So yeah, anyway. Cerveza Caleya, as I mentioned to you already, are based in Langreo in Asturias in the northern part of Spain, quite close to Oviedo and Gijón, a little bit to the southeast-ish of Oviedo, of course. But the company was originally founded by a group of 3 friends. This is Silvestre Silva Alonso Lima, along with brothers Cesar and Gonzaga Garcia Artuña. So the 3 initially met while studying cinematography and visual arts together at the School of Cinema in Ponferrada between 2001 and 2004. But following the financial crisis of 2008, the audiovisual sector experienced like a really big downturn, as many others did. But this left them with some really limited work opportunities, and they were struggling. But it was during this time that they recalled their classmate Quique Caricedo, who had partnered with an Englishman and was now working at Dougal's Brewery in Cantabria. So intrigued by this, they went to visit him, and they were really inspired by what they saw there to go and do something similar to him, but back in their home region of Asturias. So the concept for Cerveza Caleya began to take shape in 2010, but the journey was filled with some really big bureaucratic challenges, and it took them until July of 2012 to actually get the brewery launched. And it just so happened that this coincided with the Tolivia Beer Festival. Sadly though, Gonzaga died just months before the brewery's opening, and this really had a deep impact on the other two founders, but they were determined to carry on and honour his legacy and all the effort that he put into getting the brewery off the ground. So the brewery was initially located in Rio Seco, which is part of the Sobrescobio region in Asturias, and you'll find this in the Redes National Park, which is meant to be very, very pretty, but they really kind of prioritised finding a site where they could get great natural water, which they felt was often overlooked by other breweries. But they began with equipment that was lent to them by Dougal's, and this allowed them to brew around 400 litres at a time. But the interesting thing was that the path leading up to their first brewery, it was about 100 metres squared from what I understand, it was very, very steep, and this made it really difficult for them to get the materials like malt and bottles and stuff like that actually into the brewery. But nevertheless, they managed to produce 20,000 litres of beer during their first year of operations. The name Caleya is apparently derived from the Asturian word for a narrow rural path, which they say kind of symbolises the difficult journey they had actually getting the brewery off the ground. The funny thing they said though is that it wasn't actually a reference to this little path that they used to go up to actually get to the brewery, but they felt it was just something that kind of resonated with them, and so they decided to keep that as their brewery name. But a little bit later on, after a few years of success, in 2016, to meet the increasing demand for their beer, they relocated to a larger brewery in Valnalon in Langreo, which is a little bit to the northwest of where they were before, and this meant that they could expand their production capacity, and by 2021 they had increased their production to around 240,000 litres of beer annually. But after moving facilities, Carlos Ajelvis, a Venezuelan brewmaster, joined as a third partner. Now, Carlos had 30 years of experience in the brewing sector. He'd studied in Germany as well, and apparently he just visited the brewery one day to try the beer and was talking about the fact that he was considering starting his own project in Spain. But one day when he emailed them and announced that he wanted to start his own brewery in Asturias, the knowledge and kind of expertise that he had worried the founders a little bit, so they actually invited him to join Cerveza Caleya instead, and now he serves as the company's brewmaster and also as the new third partner in the company. One of the other things to talk about with this brewery is their logo, which you can see on the side of the can here. I'll give you a closer look at that in a minute. But one of the brewery's logos is the capercaillie bird, which in Spanish is known as urogallo. And this is a protected species of bird which is native to the Redes National Park, and this basically is meant to symbolise their connection to their local area. If you look at this bird, it actually looks a little bit like a kind of black rooster or something like this. It's kind of cool actually. But basically, Cerveza Caleya are widely regarded as one of the pioneers of the Asturian craft beer scene, and they've done a lot to kind of help establish the craft beer community in that region and done a lot of collaborations with other local breweries. But their beers are now quite widely available in local bars in the area, stores, and apparently you can even get them in some of the bigger supermarkets across Spain, from what I understand. But as of September 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced about 225 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. So yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Cerveza Caleya for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, well, Rate Beer doesn't exist anymore, you can check out the Untappd page to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done over the years. So yeah, I can take a breath now. That is the end of your history section in this video. So hopefully I got the pronunciations pretty decently. Nearly screwed up a few of them, but a big thank you as well to Miss Amanda for her research on this brewery. She's been helping me with the breweries that require Spanish language, which is a great help. It lets me film the videos a good bit faster actually. But yeah, anyway, let's move on to the beer itself. So as you can see, this is the Caper Cayley bird on the side here. One of the brewery's symbols, the Urogallo, as it would be in Spanish. There you can see the guy looking very happy about riding the bomb. I don't know if that's from an American film. This seems a little bit familiar, in honesty. I think I've seen this this picture somewhere before, in honesty. But yeah, plain silver top on the can. This one is a 440 milliliter can, incidentally, and it says on the side here that it's hopped with Simcoe, Columbus and Mosaic, which are pretty, yeah, it's got a little bit of wheat in it as well, but this one is pretty classically hopped. So we know all three of these hops quite well. All three of them are American. Simcoe is about 12% alpha acid. It's going to give you a lovely oily passion fruity character. Columbus is going to give you quite a lot of spicy floral aromatist, if you like. Again, it's 12% alpha acid. And Mosaic is 14% alpha acid. It's got a little bit of a distinctive earthiness in its green component, and then yeah, you've got a lovely sort of tangerine-y, orangey character to that one as well. But yeah, I think that's everything we really need to say about the technical side of the beer. Let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what it's all about. I'm really excited to do my first tasting of one of the Spanish beers that I brought back. So yeah, let's do it. Here we are. Ooh, this looks nice. So there we go. I think that's about enough for the moment to just have a look at this beer before we get into the tasting of it. So yeah, I've poured maybe about 50% of the beer out and into the glass, and you can see with what we've poured, we've got about a quarter, well, 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head there. You can see medium-sized bubbles sitting on the surface of the liquid there, and a few foamier ones just going up toward the underside of that head there. But all in all, it looks really nice, this one. That head is just fading away to be a thinner, more wispy layer on the top of the beer there. But yeah, this one pours a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. Let me just wipe the condensation away. I think this one does have a little bit of a natural haze to it, in honesty, and that's probably due to the presence of wheat in the beer. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect the colour of it as well, but you don't often have to care about those latter two variables when it comes to the IPA style category, if you like. But yeah, when it comes to the West Coast IPA, there's a few technical things we should say about this style. First off, these beers use primarily barley malt in their malt bases. It's not unheard of to use a little bit of wheat or a little bit of oat, but certainly nowhere near as much as you would find in a New England IPA, where there's considerable chunks of the malt base are wheat and oat malt. But yeah, the other thing is that I would say that there are two ends to the spectrum when it comes to this style. For me, there is the more kind of bready and biscuity end of the spectrum, such as the Pliny the Elder from Russian River Brewing, and you've also got the more kind of oily and caramelly side of the spectrum, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo. Both of those, of course, from California. Those are the two benchmarks of this style for me, or the benchmarks of the spectrum of the style, I would say. But yeah, just going by the colour of this one, I would say that this is more likely to lean toward that more bready, biscuity end of the spectrum. But maybe with the wheat, it might be a little bit more in the middle. I've always found that the ones with that little bit of wheat tend to be a little touch sweeter, in honesty. But yeah, there's not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. A few bubbles kind of coming up toward the surface of the liquid there, But yeah, there's nothing particularly unusual about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about appearance. Let's go on and have a little look at the aroma of this beer and see how we go. I'm very curious about this. The head's restored quite nicely there, I have to say. Ooh, right, okay. Now, this one smells in pretty good condition actually. I'm not sure how old the can is. Let's just have a wee look at that. Does it have a canned on date? I think this one has been canned in May of this year. So we're drinking this one at about 3-4 months old. So yeah, not in its absolute prime condition, but it should still be in pretty good condition. Usually you want to drink a West Coast IPA in its first 3 months. We are just beyond that, so let's bear that in mind. But yeah, as it stands, it's still in a pretty damn good condition, so I think we'll be fine. But yeah, aroma-wise, this one for me, it's quite a bright West Coast IPA actually. The green component's very bright in this one. You've got that lovely, more oily and slightly sweet malt base, and obviously those big oily fruity characteristics coming out of it as well. So that gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah. So I like that with this one. It gives you everything you'd want from the style, in honesty. It's quite well balanced. So let's just break it down and describe that for you a wee bit more in depth, I would say. So yeah, the backbone of this beer for me, you've got a lovely little bit of kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. So I think that goes together really quite nicely. So yeah, fresh white bready bread crust. There's a little touch of woodiness in there, a wee bit of like Jacob's cream cracker, as you very often get. And then on top of that, you start to get the bigger, breadier malts out of this one. So for me, there's just a little touch of a more grainy, wholemeal, brown bready character coming out of the beer. And then on top of that, you've got a lovely kind of fresher white bready note as well. So yeah, lovely fresh white bready character in there, and above that you can just get that little touch of more dense wheaty white bready character as well. There's a wee bit of bitiness in the back of the nose if you like, but it's very kind of smooth further forward, I would hasten to add. So yeah, the way that all of that goes together in this one, I think is pretty nice. That gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, beyond that, I would say, yeah, beyond that, I would say that there is a little bit of kind of sweetness to the malt base as well. So for me, it comes across as being a little bit more biscuity. There's maybe a little bit of a toasty caramel in there, but again, that's very light. So lovely little touch of toasty caramel, sweet, yeah, toasty caramel, a bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit, and then that more kind of concentrated, oily McVitie's digestive biscuit. A little bit of, yeah, a little bit of a almost honey-like character to it as well. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really nice. So yeah, I like that with this one. I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the malty backbone of this beer, to be honest. At the back of the nose, you've got yeah, at the back of the nose, you've got a good little mix of how would you say? There's a little bit of brown bready, the yeasty character that comes out. There's a little bit of an almost kind of like wholemeal brown bready character to it, and it's kind of sweet actually. There's some white bready notes in there, little touches of cracker and bread crust, and all of that as well. So yeah, the way that that all pieces together in this one, I think, is really quite nice actually. So that gets a big thumbs up from me. Don't know if there's anything else to say about the yeasty part of it actually. The only other thing I would add is that it's it just gives the beer a little bit of dryness in the nose actually. But yeah, malty yeasty side of this one is pretty nice, but as I say, it's quite bready leaning with the kind of oily biscuity nose to it. So yeah, let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So as I've said in many an IPA review before, there are 3 ways you can hop an IPA when you're brewing it. You can do early addition hopping, which takes place usually within the first hour or so of the wort boil. That gives you quite a deep, dank green component, and it gives you the vast majority of your bitterness. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the latter half hour of your wort boil. Gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and a very bright green component. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. That's all about flavour and aroma, and yeah, it's got it gives you a really nice bright green component as well. Now, West Coast IPAs tend to use all 3 types of hopping, which is why they're deeper, danker and more oily, whereas New England IPAs, they tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which gives you that kind of softer, more juicy character that you expect from them. So yeah, just kind of depends what you want to do. There are West Coast IPAs though these days which use more kind of New Englandy type hopping techniques. We'll need to see what's going on with this one, because this one isn't overly dank in its aroma, I would say. But yeah, for me, the green component in this one, you definitely get a little touch of earthiness out of this one. That'll be the Mosaic. I don't get too much in the way of piney resin, but there's a lovely big sort of floral aromaticity to this one as well. So yeah, lovely floral aromaticity. It's got a little touch of spiciness to it as well, and then there's some nice there's a nice little bit of a kind of lighter, grassier character to this beer as well, and it's got a wee bit of zestiness, in fact. So yeah, the way that all of that pieces together in this beer, I think, is really quite nice. But the more I smell of it, I do get a little touch more of that earthiness out of this one. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Don't know if there's anything else to say about the green component, so let's go to the fruity side of things. For me, the fruity character is kind of what you'd expect, to be honest. There's a little bit of the softer passion fruit from the Mosaic, from the Simcoe in this one, so yeah, softer passion fruit, a little bit of an apricot-y character as well. And then, but it leans a bit more toward that kind of tangerine orange from the Mosaic, that's for sure. I don't find the fruity side of this one overly pungent. Yeah, a bit of passion fruit, a bit of apricot, maybe a wee touch of pineapple, but yeah, mostly a kind of tangerine orange. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really nice in this one. But yeah, I like that in this beer. So yeah, just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of it before you get stuck in. But yeah, I think we can have a taste of this one now and see what it's all about. I'm very, very curious about this. It's quite a nice pour, that. So yeah, this one is Love the Bomb, a West Coast double IPA, 8% ABV from Cerveza Caleya in Asturias. Asturias in the north of Spain, kind of close to Oviedo, actually. So yeah, my first Spanish beer in a good wee while. Let's taste this one and see how we go. Sláinte, skål, cheers, salud. Ooh, right. That's pretty nice. First impression of it is, it's actually very smooth in the beginning, but then as you move into the aftertaste, it gives you a little bit more kind of punch, if you like. You do get a little bit more bitterness and zip out of this one and bite into the aftertaste. That's the Columbus. The Columbus is kind of showing up late to the party, if you can put it that way. And I'm pretty sure just from the way it's coming out, there will have been a fair little bit of early addition hopping. So probably what's going on here is that the Columbus has been used as the early addition hop, and the Simcoe and the Mosaic have been used as the later addition and the dry hops in this one. But it works. It does work very, very nicely. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, for me, this beer gives you everything you want, really. It has got a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty and kind of earthy sort of character to it. It's a little bit toasty, in fairness, as well, But yeah, I think it works pretty nicely in this one. Yeah, I maybe wonder I do wonder just about the freshness of it a little bit. Maybe that's being, those flavours I'm talking about are being accentuated because of the freshness of it, but still, the beer is in pretty damn good condition, I would say. Yeah, I like this. I'd be curious to try some of their other stuff based on this, a few different styles and things. I need to look up and see what they've got, but I had a couple of hazy IPAs, so I wanted a West Coaster, and this one I was told is very good, so it fit the bill. But yeah, let's break the flavour of this beer down then and describe it for you more in depth. We'll start on that middle third of your palate. The backbone of the beer, you've got that fresh, white bready bread crust in there. So yeah, white bready bread crust is there. As you move further forward on that, middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of woodiness out of the beer. There's some Jacob's cream cracker on top of that, and there's a little bit more of a kind of wholemeal, brown bready sort of character coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, again, the way that goes together in this one is quite nice, and those elements do give the beer just a little bit of dryness and things into the aftertaste. But yeah, above the wholemeal brown bready layer that you have, you'll see the bread crust almost comes across as being a little bit toasty into the aftertaste. But then yeah, above that, you get the more fluffy white bready character coming out of the beer. So yeah, the fluffy white bready characters in there. It's got a little bit of dryness to it. I wonder if it's maybe German crystal that's been used in this one. I don't know if the Spanish produce much of their own malt, in honesty. I'm not sure that the environment is that good for that. Maybe in the north of Spain it could be, but in the south certainly not. I guess it was too dry. But yeah, the malty the bready malt in this one just seems a little bit different in essence, so I'd be curious to know what malt it is they're using in this. But anyway, you've got that fluffy white bready layer in there, then above that you've got the more dense wheaty white bready layer. Now, as I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more sort of the further back on the palate you get the more dry and bitter flavours, if you like. So you can feel in that wheaty white bready layer it's a little bit bitier further back, but then it's a wee bit smoother further forward. Then above the wheaty layer you start to get the sweeter side, which is something that you want from a West Coast IPA. So let's look at that. So yeah, for me, the white bready layer, the sweeter layer in this one, it's kind of like you've got a circle in the middle of your palate. So the base layer of that circle is a little bit more of a kind of toasty, caramelly sort of note. Then the next layer up is a bit more like a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity layer. Then as you move further in from that, it's a little bit honey-like, and then the dead centre of your palate there, where the boozy side of the beer kind of coagulates, if that's the right word, or the boozy flavours concentrate. That's your kind of really sweet, big boozy kind of caramelly note, if you like. So yeah, the way that goes together in this one I think is really quite nice. So yeah, for me, the sweet sort of oily caramelly notes in this one I think are really nice. I like that. I do like that with a big 8% West Coast IPA. I wanted to just have that little bit of booziness and to show you, yeah, I have that. I am an 8%er. You really get that out of this beer. It's not overly boozy, if that makes sense, but it is just really nicely done, I would say. So yeah, that gets my approval, I have to say that. I think we said everything we need to about the middle third of the palate. Then let's go to the back third of your palate. So I've often said the back third of your palate is going to give you very similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, but just at different intensities. So yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate. You get that little bit of bready build up in there. The brown bread's in the base, the barley malt white bread's in the middle, then the wee bit of wheaty bitiness is on top. You've got the bread crusty character, which is a little bit more grainy. Further back, of course, you've got the Jacob's cream cracker on top of that. The wholemeal brown bready layers there, which feels a little bit lighter, taller and more airy, which I do like. Then above that you've got the barley malt white bready layer, which again feels a little bit lighter, taller, more airy and dry. Then you've got the more dense wheaty type character sitting on top of that as well. So yeah, that more dense wheaty white bready character there just has a bit more bite to it, which is kind of interesting. But above everything else, you've got the more yeasty character coming out of the beer as well. So the yeasty side of this beer, at its core, it's got a more dense wholemeal brown bready sort of character to it. Then it's surrounded by a little bit of a more kind of grainy, yeah, a little bit of a kind of lighter but still quite grainy wholemeal brown bread, and there's a wee touch of white bread and a little bit of bread crust around the very edge. So it's a very bready, yeasty character that you're getting out of this one, but that lingers there into the aftertaste, and again, I think that is very, very nice with this beer. So yeah, definitely back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of compresses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me. I really like how that pieces together. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the malty side of things. Let's go on to the hoppy side of the beer then. So back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little touch of earthiness in there, which as I say is most likely to come from the Mosaic, but the Columbus is going to give you some of that too. As you move further forward, it becomes a little bit more like woody and slightly herbal, but yeah, not too much. But as you push further and further forward along there, there's a really nice kind of floral aromatic kind of spice coming out of this one. So yeah, lovely floral aromatic spice in there. Pardon me, that lingers into the aftertaste. Then round the front curve of your tongue, the beer is just that little bit lighter and more grassy and zesty, if you like. So yeah, the green component in this one, it's a little bit more oily, but it's not too deep and dank, if that makes sense. But yeah, let's have a wee look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. Again, you've got the bready build up in there, the brown bread, the barley malt white bread, the wee bit of wheat, and the base, of course, is the white bready bread crust, the cracker, the brown bread, the white bread, and a wee bit of the smoother side of the wheat. But then above that, you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's have a little look at that fruity side of things then. So yeah, the fruity side of the beer for me, I would say it has actually, it's interesting, like at the back of that front third of your palate, there is a wee bit of that stronger grapefruit in there, and I'm wondering if that's coming from the Columbus rather than anything else. So yeah, Columbus can give you that really big, deep grapefruity sort of thing, and that sort of big floral spice, and that's really evident in this beer. So there is a wee touch of grapefruit in there, but yeah, and that does linger into the aftertaste, I'll say that too. But yeah, as you move further forward in that oily bubble on the front third of your palate, you get the softer passion fruit which you expect of the Simcoe, and it gives you, as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, it's got a little bit of a softer sort of apricot-y kind of note to it as well. And then yeah, as you go into the front half of that front third of your palate, it's got a little bit more yeah, you get a lot more of that kind of tangerine-y, orangey sort of thing out of this one from the Mosaic. The fruity side of this beer is actually pretty simple. So say, a little bit of grapefruit, softer passion fruit, wee touch of apricot, then it's all about the tangerine-y orange. I think that sums it up quite nicely, in honest. There's maybe just a little touch of an almost limey note behind the very front tip of the tongue where the fruit mixes with the kind of grassy esters. But other than that, yeah, I don't know if there's too much to say. Otherwise, the only other thing I would add is that you've got a bit more of that oily tangerine orange when you take the beer in the beginning. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really, really nice in this one. So yeah, flavour-wise, really nice beer this one. A little bit of a more old school West Coast IPA. As well, so yeah, could, you know, maybe another hop in there like Citra or something like that, just to put the fruity complexity up, would really put this one on a little bit of an edge there. But yeah, as it stands, I think it's pretty damn good. Really, really solid take on the style, and quite an old school one as well. It's given me that little bit of nostalgia vibe to it. So yeah, just to round off this review then, for me, mouthfeel wise, this beer, I'd say that this is top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth in this one. It's just got a little prickle to it. It's got a lovely cleanliness, but also a little bit of slickness to it, and that must be what they're talking about in that in the with the local water being so nice there. So yeah, that's kind of evident when you actually taste the beer as a Scot and a Swede, I guess, as well. And having tasted a lot of Japanese craft beers, I can tell you that the water quality can play a big role, particularly in the mouthfeel of your beer and the way the flavours come out. So that's quite an interesting one with this, that this comes across as so clean in a way. But yeah, in terms of the I'd say it's got a little bit of oily slickness to it and cleanliness as well, which I do quite like. You tend to find that in wine countries actually, the beer tends to be just a little touch more oily and slick. Keep that in mind with your Italian and Slovenian beers, French ones sometimes as well. But yeah, in terms of IBU with this beer, what would we say? Yeah, I'd maybe say that this one is about 70-ish IBUs. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 80, but yeah, the bitterness does linger into the aftertaste there. The malt base has a wee bit of graininess underneath, smoothness in the middle, and an oily sweetness on top. And then yeah, you've got that lovely oily, fruity character coming out of it as well. So yeah, all in all, the way that everything kind of pieces together in this beer, I think is really quite nice. So it's a big thumbs up for me. A really solid West Coast double IPA from these guys, and you can't ask for much more than that. So yeah, I got a good recommendation with this one. But yeah, this was the Love the Bomb, an 8% West Coast double IPA from Cerveza Caleya in Asturias in the north of Spain. A really nice brew that I would like to check out a little bit further. So yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Cerveza Caleya as well. And as I say, hopefully we can return to these guys again at some point in the near future. In the meantime, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll catch you guys in another review very, very soon. Ciao just now. Salut.